Reese's Senior Bowl practice Thursday. From Mobile, Alabama, the beautiful Hancock Whitney Stadium, another glorious day weather-wise here in Mobile. University of South Alabama's brand new stadium, first time here for the Senior Bowl. Amongst some of the players that are in participation in today's practice includes Ian Book, the winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history, a guy looking to build his stock this week. Felipe Franks, who transferred to Arkansas after beginning his college career at Florida, also here trying to make his mark. As is Nico Collins, the former Michigan wide receiver who opted out of the 2020 season. Notre Dame well represented on both sides of the ball this year. That includes Dalen Hayes, their defensive end, one of two Notre Dame defensive linemen. They're here this week at the Senior Bowl. Welcome into ESPNU's continued coverage of the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl. I'm Field Yates, along with Todd McShay, who's been here for just a couple of years at the Senior Bowl. I got in trouble yesterday for saying, 23, there it is. Former Jets general manager and head of football operation for the Miami Dolphins, Mike Tannenbaum, and Louis Riddick, who not only played in the NFL, worked in front offices. You know him now as part of the great Monday Night Football broadcast booth. So yesterday, another productive day on the field. And this is a year, Mike, where the importance of the Senior Bowl is really shining in the context of an otherwise unfamiliar pre-draft process.
That's exactly right, Field. Ordinarily, we would say that the Senior Bowl is the beginning of the offseason process, but recently the NFL came out and said we're not going to have a combine because of the pandemic, and that's why all 32 teams are here. This will literally be their only opportunity to sit face-to-face with so many prospects, and Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, has done an incredible job of bringing some really, really good players, headlined by Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama, some other Alabama teammates, but that's why all 32 teams are here. They're going to spend each night trying to interview as many of these prospects as possible.
Yeah, how quickly can you get some of these players to kind of reveal their authentic self to you? How quickly can you get them disarmed and kind of open up and find out some of the information that you can't find out over Zoom, that you need to really look at someone face-to-face in the interview process and find that out? And then on the football field, I mean, that's where it's really the most important. Of course, you need to find out about the player, football and personal character-wise, but how do they really adapt to being, as Matt Rule really articulated yesterday, being a professional for the first time. Now you're actually a professional football player. You're not getting paid out here, but you're going through a pro type of schedule, pro type of techniques, pro type of practice schedule, pro type of demands. How do you really react to that? This is invaluable to all these football teams. What a blessing for them to be here, for us to be here, for us to be covering this, because it's been a long time since we've been on the grass or turf with rubber pellets.
And Lou, it's been impressive. I've been talking to Jim Nagy since August, trying to figure out what this could be. And when the Pac-12 and the Big Ten decided to come back and play football, he went from thinking maybe it would be a 3-week event to, all right, we're going to go back to normal. But normal is $12,000 worth of plexiglass in order to have these general managers, coaches, scouts be able to sit down and for the first time all year talk one-on-one with these players. And you got guys like Najee Harris who had a grapefruit for an ankle. He's here doing non-contact drills. Devontae Smith from Alabama. You got so many other players who are here who can't participate because they're injured, but they want the opportunity to tell the story and to actually have a one-on-one. And that's what Jim Nagy and that's what the Senior Bowl has provided, because we don't have a combine and there's not going to be a lot of opportunity to have one-on-ones without Zoom.
Every year, players fortify their draft status here during the Senior Bowl week. So let's go through some of the players that have stood out so far this week. Mike, we'll start with you, a quarterback not named Mac Jones, who's done well for himself.
Sam Ellinger, University of Texas. We talk about opt-outs, guys not playing a lot. 46 starts at University of Texas, has 94 career passing touchdowns. And what we wanted to see this week was arm strength. Could he drive the ball down the field? And he's someone that's been out here. He's shown great poise, great experience, and I think so far it hasn't been too big for him. And this is somebody that a lot of people have compared to Jalen Hurts. Good athlete. Again, arm strength is the big question mark. He has a massive opportunity to work himself up into maybe that top of the second day conversation. So far, so good for Sam Ellinger. Next couple days will be critically important.
And Todd, amongst a deep wide receiver group, who's one of the guys that's caught your eye?
Dwayne Eskridge. I mean, he's special, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many good wide receivers here, but I would argue that he has been the most consistent. And Nico Collins is another guy that we talked about, and he's a special player. Nico Collins and Dwayne Eskridge have been the two best wide receivers here at the Senior Bowl so far.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, you see Nico Collins here on the screen, but you're right. I mean, this is a guy who's 6'4", 215 plus, opts out last year. You want to see what's he going to look like here once he starts going through football type of activity, and he showed yesterday, he said, hey, not a problem. Dwayne Eskridge is a problem for people. He is a problem. He's a problem for nickel corners. He's a problem for outside corners, and if you're a safety, good luck. You might as well just go ahead and go to the sideline, get a drink of water, and line up for the next series because he's going to torch you.
And
this
here's
is a guy.
Eskridge.
Yeah,
Eskridge he averaged over 30 yards per catch this past season. I mean, and
30 and about
over
30.
And you watch the tape, it's like, well, it's Mac. It's Mac football, maybe. And then you watch him out here against Florida DBs and, like, top end DBs. And he's getting off the line, he's separating, he's sinking his hips, getting in and out of breaks, and he's catching everything. Eskridge, to me, has been the most impressive wide receiver here, and I think he's worked his way into the top 50 pick in this year's draft.
We were just talking about Nico Collins amongst the players that opted out of the 2020 season who are here this week. So let's take a look at some of the other names that haven't had any exposure during the fall, but are here this week in Mobile. Nico Collins, Levi Onwuzurike, a very talented defensive tackle, number 26 on Todd's overall board out of Washington. You see Sage Surratt, his brother, a linebacker from North Carolina. Chaz is also here this week. Ambry Thomas and Thomas Graham Jr., a couple of cornerbacks. How about some other players to keep an eye on this week as you look at these players amongst the most notable because of where they rank on Todd's board or the name you may remember or have had good weeks? Najee Harris, as Todd mentioned, he's participating in some drills, but can't do everything because of that ankle injury. Patrick Jones, one of two Pittsburgh defensive linemen here, that always fires Lewis up a little bit. And then Demetric Felton, a player who's listed there at running back, but also plays some wide receiver. We've seen him run routes well this week during the practices. With an update on some of the injuries and other notable things that have taken place here during the week in Mobile, let's head out to the final member of our broadcast crew, Quint Kesnick.
Thanks, Field. Interesting to look at this wide receiver group today, and all of a sudden you've got, 4 or 5 players who are not going to participate today, and their status for this week is still up in the air. And let's start with Dwayne Eskridge. You guys have been singing his praises, Western Michigan wide receiver. Going to be probably the kind of a day-to-day game time decision whether he continues to play this week. Ben Skowronek from Notre Dame, actually on crutches, and he looks doubtful for the rest of the week after making some plays yesterday. You've also got Sage Surratt and Tylan Wallace not dressed today. So the issue here is availability. You've got 5 healthy wide receivers who are going to share the bulk of the reps today. Opportunity. You talk about a great opportunity for the guys who are healthy today to make some plays. Talk to Josh Grizzard, their wide receivers coach. He said they're going to change roles, so some guys will have to play X, Y, or Z, and that'll be an opportunity for the young men who, like Frank Darby or Nico Collins, who are participating today in this practice.
Well, with so many guys out, plenty of opportunity for others. Thank you, Quint. Todd, just a quick update that you spoke to Dwayne Eskridge just moments ago.
I did. I just walked up and asked him, and he said it's precautionary. He didn't say specifically what the injury was. It doesn't seem like it's something serious, but I think he probably tweaked something and doesn't want to come out and hurt something more and not be the player that he has been the last 2 days.
Players certainly erring on the side of caution here this week. They've improved a lot, but certainly have to keep an eye on the future as well. We've got plenty throughout the day. Slump. So practice now underway for the national team. This team being coached by the Miami Dolphins. Brian Flores and his staff been working hard this week. They, of course, own the number 3 overall pick as part of the trade that sent Laramie Tunsil to the Houston Texans. They also have the 17th overall pick and 4 of the top 50. Throughout these next couple of hours, we're going to have our guys break out on the field and go check in on a few different position groups. And you'll also hear from some of the coaches live on the field. We got a few mic'd up, as you can see right now. We'll let you listen in and watch in during some team period reps early in practice. You know, Todd, I gotta jump in right away and ask you something, because it's not often that we're going to be able to talk about fullbacks during the pre-draft process. But my guy Ben Mason out of Michigan right there just caught a pass. I don't know when the last time you had a fullback who was probably considered somewhere in like the 4th round, 5th round, maybe based off pre-draft grades, but this guy seems to be a player that's going to hear his name called very early relative to where most fullbacks are drafted in a given year.
He's such a stud, man. Yeah, I mean, he's the rat. You got to follow him because they're going to run behind him because he's that good of a blocker. He very rarely gets carries. He almost never gets catches. You look at the last couple of years, and I think he had 2 catches in the last 2 years and no carries, but he doesn't care. He just shows up and he'll grind you out. He'll play on special teams. He does all the little things. And yeah, in the probably the 5th, 6th round, he's going to get drafted and get a chance to come in and be one of those program guys, if you will.
Yeah, I know that sometimes player comparisons can be a bit fleeting, but there's a guy named Pat Ricard, played his college ball at Maine, now plays for the Baltimore Ravens, has played lots on defense in previous years. This year, an offensive and special teams maven for them. We're number 42, so John Harbaugh, Ravens head coach, knows the value of a versatile fullback. His brother Jim coached Ben Mason at Michigan. Maybe a little bit of a fair player comparison there.
And I just looked it up. 2 catches, no carries this past season.
And I don't think he was bothered by that one bit, right?
No. He shows up and he does his job.
You guys, one of the benefits of being at the Senior Bowl from a club perspective is you really get to see guys head-to-head to start trying to create some tiebreakers. And we touched on earlier that number of receivers. Quint reported that the national team will be out at least 4 receivers. And you have Sam Ehlinger of Texas, Ian Book of Notre Dame. It'll be interesting to see today as they go through this walkthrough with this modified skill group. We're seeing Demetric Felton here from UCLA line up in the slot. It'll be interesting to see how these 2 quarterbacks can adjust to a lesser skill group. And again, when we're sitting there in draft meetings in April around draft time and Ehlinger and Book have comparable grades, it may come down to this week here in Mobile in terms of a tiebreaker.
Well, and talking to Jim Nagy, he was saying they brought in 136 players this year, and usually it's somewhere like between 110 and 120. But he understood that we can't just grab a guy from Mississippi or Washington or wherever and have him come in because of all the COVID restrictions. So we have to have more guys because we know there are going to be injuries, there's going to be situations, and having an additional 16 to 26 players allows some more depth at all the positions.
And the other thing, Todd, to that point is these guys get a chance to play more than one position. Again, looking at Demetric Felton here, number 10 from UCLA, we've already seen him line up in slot, outside receiver, and he's a guy that weighed in about 11 pounds less than what he played running back at UCLA. So not only is it more players that Jim Nagy brought in, but also the versatility. And someone like Felton, that will serve him well at the next level.
As promised, we're going to get you out onto the field. Let's see now if we can listen in to Dolphins defensive backs coach Gerald Alexander.
We got 12 people, but treat it like 11.
Ball going, Michael. Hey, Michael, push it.
Move it back. Let's go, Rhino. Darren, go to free. Rhino. No one out. Let's go under 1 week, alert, raised. You're the rat now. Good. Nice. Nickel. He's a nickel now. Hey, over. 1, rat, alert, raise.
Lewis, our former defensive back, you hear Gerald Alexander right there. You hear him calling out the personnel on defense. What else do you learn from him based off what he's telling those guys before each snap?
Well, one of the cool things that they're doing right now is that they're taking these players through a normal pro preparation type of week. So Wednesday, 1st and 2nd down, base game plan. Thursday, red zone, 3rd down, 2-minute. That's what they were just doing, repping the red zone area, stuff that they're going to do during practice today. So some of the things that Gerald was talking about right there You heard him talk. They were playing a lot of man-to-man coverage, playing a lot of man with a single safety middle and a guy who's like a second-level rat player who's really just a player who's just kind of scanning the field. He's just trying to give them pointers about, look, these are the kind of things you need to start looking for. These are some of the routes that you're going to get. They're preparing these guys. We talked about this yesterday. In that early period, they're preparing guys for what's going to come later in practice. Again, testing your ability to take what you learned from the classroom to a walkthrough, from the walkthrough to 7-on-7, from 7-on-7 to team. All a part of the evaluation process. This is what makes today is one of those days that's not typically as hard as Wednesday practices, but it's much more cerebral. It's all about situational football, which we hear talked about all the time on Sundays in the NFL. It's just another test for these guys to see if they can quickly assimilate information and use it on the football field. I love Thursday practices because red zone is where it's at. I mean, that's really what determines football games, red zone and third down. So let's see who stands out today.
Well, as you can see, the national team currently getting its stretching in, which is letting you know that the big action's about to begin just moments away. And our coverage here of the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl is not going anywhere. More to come on ESPNU right after this.
Right underneath.
Part of the
there
best,
it is. Nice.
some of the
Nice.
best stuff you can hear
Here we go.
is the coaches wired on the field.
Nice job on that. Huh? Hey, work the progression, showed right in front of you. That's a good picture. Get up in there, right in there. Yep. Khalil, that's the spot.
We got to get our hands on the football today. We're not in the scare business. Come on. Catch the rock. Boom. We're going to get the ball all day today. We got to practice it. Paddle. Compete. Cover ground. Try to touch him, man. That's how fast I want you to go.
That's it. That's it. Look at me. You collapse the pocket like that, right? I know we're saying no bull in this drill, but if he goes soft, that's what you're going to do. There ain't no move now.
Keep your poise, all right? Keep your poise. That make sense? Yes? Yeah. Okay, keep your poise. Just keep competing.
Good job down the counter. Hey, now just be balanced on it. Be balanced on it. So when he comes back inside, just walk your hands on his back and stay. Let him do all that. That doesn't matter to you, right? You're winning the down.
Oh, well, who's that? Who's that on? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good coverage. Oh, yeah. I hit you with the Heisman, Cam. That you can't do that. You cannot do that. That's illegal.
You got one-on-ones again. How'd you guys like that? I liked it. I enjoyed it. Call competition. It's like Mr. 40-40 here, right? If I keep practicing the same drill, that means when we go to the game time, what happens? It feels like normal. It feels like normal, though, you know?
It was a real wide release. He wouldn't have got to the quarterback. He just came and hand swiped outside and just ran the loop.
Hey, two was mobile.
Huh?
Two was mobile.
More sound coming throughout the day, but for an update now, let's go back to Quint. What do you got for us, Quint?
Well, before practice, I spent time with Charlie Frye. He's a newly hired quarterbacks coach for the Miami Dolphins. Coach Frye was the offensive coordinator at Central Michigan earlier this year. And about today's practice, he told me the biggest challenge is terminology and processing the calls and getting everybody lined up in and out of the huddle and dealing with snaps from under center. It's a lot. And he hopes that his guys are able to play faster and faster as this week matures. He also told me a funny story, Field, about, Charlie played for Akron. He was in this game. He was in the Senior Bowl. He said his first snap from center in the Senior Bowl game was a play-action pass, fakes the ball to the running back, drop back, and he gets sacked. He gets blown up bad. And he's like, there's no blitzing in the Senior Bowl game. But because it was a play-action, the linebacker just played the run and kept going and lit him up pretty good. He said after that play, he grabbed his mouthpiece out of his sock and put it in and said, game on now. So Charlie's been here now as a coach and a former player.
So you're welcome to the Senior Bowl moment early in the game for Charlie Frye. Did a nice job at Central Michigan, now looking to do the same as the Dolphins quarterbacks coach. The national team continue its stretch. We'll continue our coverage here for the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl. We've got Louis Riddick, Mike Tannenbaum, Todd McShay, Quint Kestic, me, Field Yates, with more to come in just moments here on ESPNU. Catch a great women's college basketball matchup tonight as number 4 South Carolina's in Starkville to take on number 21 Mississippi State at 7 Eastern on ESPN, as well as the app. As always, Dawn Staley, the coach of the Gamecocks, has them near the top of the SEC standings at 7-0 in conference play. Well, we're back here at the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl, and we got individual period underway. Louis Riddick's got his eyes on the running back group. This is a deep group on the whole here, Louis. What have you noticed from this group this week, and what are you seeing right now?
Well, I think you have a nice, you have a nice combination of players in different body types between Carter, Herbert, and Stevenson. Carter and Herbert, they get progressively bigger. Carter very quick, a little short, more compact. Herbert really good in pass protection yesterday, and Stevenson, who just looks like a freaking stud. And what they're doing right now is, they're executing some of their play-action passing game, some of their drop-back game down here in the red zone, which is where they're going to focus on today. And you're kind of getting, if you watch Miami Dolphin film, you see they're running the Miami Dolphin offense. Obviously, that features a lot of play-action pass, move the pocket with Tua Tagovailoa. So they're asking Ian Book and Felipe Franks and Sam Ehlinger to do that kind of stuff and hit these backs out of the backfield. So you're seeing just how good these backs are catching the football out of the backfield, especially here in the scoring zone. So, it'll be interesting to see these guys actually execute in the passing game. We know that they're all good runners. We want to see how they pass protect and what kind of threats they are as receivers. And that's going to be the challenge here today. That's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, Lewis, really, you know it better than anybody. In today's NFL, there are very few running backs that are playing a ton of snaps that aren't proficient and capable in the passing game. If you can't be a factor when teams are playing behind the sticks, you may not be able to play much in the NFL at that spot.
Yeah, these two positions, running back and quarterback, you can do a lot for yourself as far as improving your stock and improving your standing in the eyes of scouts with your performance on this day in particular in this area of the football field. I remember a couple of years ago, this is where for me Baker Mayfield stood out. When we got to the Thursday practice, he absolutely just lit it up in the red area. He was, the ball never hit the ground. Real quick decision making, putting the ball where it needed to be put. That's what you want to see from these quarterbacks today, from a guy like Ian Book, from a guy like Sam Ehlinger. You want to see them put the ball in good spots, particularly when they're attacking the middle of the field with running backs and tight ends, because that's how the NFL works. So we're going to see if they can answer the bell.
Let's flip over from the offensive side to the defensive side. Take a closer look at the linebacker group coached up by Dolphins linebackers coach Anthony Campanile.
Give me elbows, you got me? Tighten them up, clamp. I want to see a fast lock. Elbows in. Come on, Darren, good. All right, going left. Left. Right. Two. Good. Good. He ain't go right yet. All right, you up left. Right. Peace. Shit. Give me a.
So Todd, it's I don't know that we have maybe necessarily a Devin White type prospect in this year's linebacker class, guy who might go in the top 5 or 7 amongst inside backers. But got any players that sort of come to mind from the group of linebackers we have here in Mobile this week?
The first guy that jumps out is Chaz Surratt. His brother, obviously, the Wake Forest wide receiver, Sage Surratt. And the Surratt family is about to get a lot of money. Congratulations. But Chaz, he is today's NFL linebacker. He can go sideline to sideline. He can play that overhang position. And by that, I mean covering the slot receiver, the big tight end, whoever it is. He's great in coverage. And he's also exceptional in terms of his instincts as a pass rusher. So you got a guy who can do all 3 things. And that's what you want. You can keep him on the field for an entire game and not worry about any personnel deficiencies. And Chaz, to me, is the best of a really good group. Shaka Toney is another guy who's kind of an edge player coming out of Pittsburgh who can rush the quarterback. It still has to get better in terms of defending the run. You got Tough Borland, who is just a good football player, but doesn't have the height, weight, speed, and all the measurables you look for. But to me, the guy from this group is Chaz Surratt, and I think he's got a chance. If not in the first round, he's going to go early on day 2.
And Todd, you know what's remarkable about Surratt is he started as a left-handed quarterback at North Carolina.
I know, right?
A pretty impressive guy and athlete. Let's take a listen into a little bit more from the linebackers group that Anthony Campanile.
Reload. We'll see lock. Beat. Shit. Go. Lock. Beat. Shit. Good. Here we go. Let's go. Lock. Beat. Shit. Do it again. The elbows in. Roll your elbows. I want you to feel that. All right, knuckle out. I want you to feel knuckle out. Here we go. Come on. Elbows in, knuckle out. I want you to feel that, okay? Feel good there? Lock, peek, shed. Yeah. Shed his ass. Shrug him off. At the top. All right, back up. All right, get right there, Hilly. All right, gonna come downhill to your right. Lock him out, bottom hand, hands, come make the tackle. Here we go. See that? Good, finish, good. Good. See that? Bottom. Here we go. See that? Finish, Margie, good. Finish on the tackle.
All right, Mike, the linebackers make life easier on defensive linemen, sometimes vice versa as well. So what do you see from the defensive line you're with right now?
You know, Field, starting with somebody that Todd just talked about, number 18, Shaka Toney, Penn State. One of the things that both players get to accomplish here and teams get to evaluate is versatility and what position can they play. And that's one of the questions about Shaka Toney. He's about 238 pounds. And is he going to be a 4-3 defensive end? Is he going to be an outside linebacker? But he's working down here in the pass rush drill, working a lot of fundamentals right now, pad level, looking for hip, ankle, flexibility, explosion out of your stance, how violent you are with your hands. So this is an important week for Toney because, again, a couple of teams, people aren't really sure what scheme he's going to fit into. Obviously, if he can rush the passer, he'll be able to get on the field. So we'll see him, I presume, in the game, both with his hand down and maybe standing up a little bit. And then the other play that's really distinguished himself is 91, Aid Agujier from Notre Dame. He's a guy that's really flashed a lot of athleticism so far in the drills. I like his fundamentals. We're watching him here. Great knee bend, great pad level. He's played with really strong and violent hands. So he's a guy to me that could be in that conversation for the bottom of the first round.
I'm also down with the D-line. Just an interesting story, Mike, I want to bring up is Ellerson Smith, the tall defensive end from Northern Iowa, FCS, who had no season in 2020. I actually covered his playoff game when Northern Iowa lost at James Madison back in 2019, a year where he had 14 sacks. And the physical transformation he's made in 2 years, I mean, he's put on 15, maybe 20 pounds of muscle in that time. I think he was a recruited tight end or quarterback that they moved to D-line. But he's made a remarkable transformation. I don't know how he fits in with this group. I don't know how he fits in with the NFL, but I'll tell you, he's put on a lot of good muscle in the last 2 years.
And Quinn, to your point, he's moving really well. So this is good weight that he's added, really shown great flexibility. And for him not playing this year, this game's going to be really important this whole week of practice. So Ellerson Smith's a good player to keep an eye on, number 47.
Let's move from the defensive line over to the defensive backfield as we have Gerald Alexander, Dolphins cornerbacks and secondary coach, mic'd up.
So here we go. So watch this. We're not in the middle, all right? But just for the sake of exercise, all right? Now, let's say the ball's right here on the 10. We make a red call, okay? Red, and I'm the post player, okay? Give me a divine. Let's say you're on the hash, okay? Let's go D-Ham. You're right here, okay? I'm the red safety, okay? So, as the field condenses, I don't have the deep defense to defend. So now I can really be flat foot, right? Possibly on the goal line. As it gets tighter, I can get myself into the end zone a little bit also. So red just puts you as a free robber. You can cut whatever. You can be on the QB. If you're available to cut, cut. Does that make sense? Okay, here we go. Watch this. All right, here we go. Go here. You got me? Okay? Let's say, Dan, you're guarding this guy. You're guarding this guy. Okay, to make sure you give a cut call, you're going to cut him. Okay? Here we go. Right there in the blind. Wide A. Wide A, say it. Boom. Now you free up, Dan. Good. Now you free up. Perfect. Here we go. Next guy's up. Good. Good. Here we go. Be a route runner for me. Be a route runner for me. Okay, good. Here we go. I'm your Q right here. Give me the same route, Barry. Give me the same route. Here we go. Wide A. Wide A's here. Boom. I'm here. I'm the Q. I'm the Q. Boom. There we go. Good. Next guy's up. Next guy's up. Here we go. Now, what? Give me the same thing, Christian.
Will's going to defer to you again, our resident DB. What are some of the coaching points you're picking up here from Gerald Alexander?
I wasn't able to hear what coverage they were actually talking about here, but you can see what they're really emphasizing is, again, we're talking about the red zone area today and how important communication is down here between corners and safeties, and how important it is to know where your help is coming from, because things happen so fast. And that's one of the things I heard him stressing, is that you have to be communicating, you have to be reading wide receiver splits, you have to have a good idea what the game plan is and what people like to try and do. So they gave him a little bit of that as far as, in the walkthroughs about what the kind of things they're going to see. And now he's walking through some of the things right now in order to give these guys a heads up and then see if they can apply it. Again, the mental part of the game, all a part of this evaluation down here. How quickly can players take coaching points and use them? Because the red area, we see it all the time in all levels of football. It's where you win or lose football games, and a lot of it comes down to secondary play.
And watch your guy 33, the Pitt safety, who I absolutely love. All season long, they relied on him to be the guy. And in that cover 4, Pat Narduzzi, he's in the stands. I just talked to him for about 15 minutes. He was saying, we put so much on him, and he answered everything that we asked him to do. Every time we asked him to cover man-to-man, come off the edge, anything we asked him to do, he did it, because he's not the most physically gifted guy, but he is smart, and he's got football intelligence, and he just has instincts. And that's why I think I don't know, maybe he's a 3rd, 4th round pick. He's going to be in the league for a long time because he can cover, he can play the run, and he loves the game.
All right, more to come here from the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl. Rolls along our coverage here on ESPNU. National team practice is underway. More coming up next. For number 5 Texas playing against Kentucky at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central Time. Back here at the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl and picking up the pace a little bit here on the practice field. Got some competitive periods taking place right now as we've got one-on-ones amongst the offensive and defensive linemen. We'll take a look in there right now with some of these defensive linemen trying to prove their pass rushing merits.
Yeah, Field, Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma, he's going here. He just had actually pretty poor rep for him. He's someone I like a lot. He's a former wrestler, really very good short area quickness, very strong.
Lefty too, Mike. You don't see many lefty centers in the NFL.
Good call. We talked about a left-handed quarterback earlier in Surratt. Now we got a left-handed center in Creed Humphrey.
So there's a player to his right guard, Quinn Meinerz, who's generated a lot of headlines this week here at the Senior Bowl. He went to University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, Division III school. A guy who, as you can see, goes with
great
the
belly.
Zeke Elliott. Yeah, impressive belly. He goes with the Zeke Elliott crop top look here. But Todd is
little different look.
You and I were talking about him this morning prior to practice. It's not just the internet sensation. This guy can play as well.
He can.
And this is such a significant week. Ordinarily, for small school guys it would be important, but with opt-outs this year, not getting a chance to play, guys like Ali Marpet who've come through here have done really well based on how well they play in the game. So far, so good for our guy. Can't wait to see him in the game against a really talented
Not many
roster.
Division III guys wind up here at the Senior Bowl or get drafted. So the fact that he's here, he was a late addition. Jim Nagy told us he was a late ad, but he really stood out. And he's a shot put guy, discus in high school. He's an athlete despite that belly.
I might argue he's an athlete because of that belly, Todd.
There you
Impressive.
go.
Tell you what, he just held his own against, we just talked about Ada Gougier from Notre Dame, and that was a good rep for our guy.
Yep.
He held his own. Division III against Notre Dame, he was not outclassed.
See Ohio State. We've got 4 Buckeye linebackers here this week. 4 impressive prospects.
I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches. It really is. Tuff Borland's here. Justin Hilliard, who's really underrated. Baron Browning, who his instincts aren't there, but physically he's as talented as any linebacker in the country. And then Pete Werner is not here because he's a junior. but Pete Werner, in my opinion, is the best linebacker for Ohio State. So, like, you got 4 Ohio State linebackers that are going to get drafted, and then you get Cooper coming off the edge. And he's been, I think, one of the better edge rushers for the last 3 days here at the Senior Bowl.
Todd, you mentioned that you spoke to Pat Narduzzi, who's up there in the stands, checking in on some of his Pitt guys, and of course Lewis's analysis is Lewis, very proud Pitt alum himself. I believe we have the Dolphins offensive line coach perhaps get some mic'd up for some sound down there from the one-on-ones.
If I go right here, I'm never the quarterback.
This is Lemuel John Pierre, former NFL player.
How'd it go? I missed.
Played his college ball at South Carolina.
That's gonna be the pro,
Had a
right?
nice career in the
It's gonna be the
NFL.
pro, right?
Hey, Phil, we got a good matchup here. We got Shaka Toney from Penn State against Hudson from University of Cincinnati. Both guys could be top of the day 2 picks here. It's good win for Shaka Toney there. Again, some questions about where he's going to line up. Todd, you mentioned earlier maybe he'll be a linebacker. He's about 238 pounds, but he has some edge quickness.
He's wide, but he's running right at you.
You know, James Hudson's a guy who feels like he's been one of the buzzier players this week as well. He's the left tackle you see right there from Cincinnati. Very athletic, Todd. A guy that certainly can move in space.
He's really underrated. He's going to wind up being a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And I think he's going to be one of those guys who, if it's left tackle or right tackle, he's going to play in the league for 10 years. He's just learning how to play the position, and every single game he gets better and better. I had him against Houston, and he just shut down the Houston defensive line.
You know, Todd, you know what else has been very impressive is these Northern Iowa guys, Ellerson Smith, Spencer Brown. This has not been too big for these guys, and I think, again, it goes back to the quality and depth of the Senior Bowl. Even though they're coming from lower competition, they have more than held their own so far.
And one thing, like, as pros, what we keep doing, I was doing when I was playing. Keep watching him, right? If you can't try to make us see his angle, see what we're doing, things like that. There you go. There you go. There you go. He's tight. He's tight. Hands.
As you can see now, we transition over to the wide receiver, defensive back one-on-ones. I believe we got Lewis down there with front row seat to it all. Had some really competitive matchups throughout the week here, Lewis. This wide receiver group is really, really deep. But the cornerback group seems to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a straight-up competition here on the +5. You have to get your work done early at the line of scrimmage if you're a defensive back. It's a great rep right there by Cameron Bynum against Devin Fitzpatrick, Des Fitzpatrick, who's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty good in individual drills down here as far as the bounce in his step, body control, hands. Him and Nico Collins athletically are the 2 guys that stand out, and Nico's up now. See, it just looks so easy for him. It looks so easy. He just glides as an athlete.
Yeah.
And you see how fast he is at the line of scrimmage? A guy who's 6'4", 220 pounds almost. You see how quick and sudden his body is? And then he can just jump and float through the air.
He adjusts
He's just a sick athlete. He's a sick athlete.
He really is. Chase Claypool is kind of the comp I would make in terms of a guy who, was good in college, but I think is going to be much better in the NFL.
Yeah, what was interesting is last year when we were in the indoor facility right up here on the hill in the second practice is where Chase Claypool stood out in the red area because of how tall and how big he is. Now, Nico's a little bit thinner than Chase. I mean, Chase is absolutely put together. That's a great route by Darby.
Great catch, too.
You see those routes all the time. Mike Evans, Tampa Bay, he catches those back line crossing routes on the back line of the end zone over and over. All these things that you're seeing these guys do, you see them done on Sundays. So this is a great way to really see how these guys will translate because they're doing all the things that you see being done on Sundays.
Frank Darby, who only played 4 games this season, threw up at least 3 times yesterday, but he showed up to every single drill. He was right back in, and he has been falling all week long.
He's feeling good today. He's been dancing nonstop down here in the end zone.
I've seen that.
You know, Todd, we've had obviously 2 Arizona State wide receivers taken in each of the past 2 drafts, in the first round, I should say. Darby's not going to be a first-round guy, but another guy that should hear his name called at some point during the draft process. Taking a look at these tight ends down there as well.
N'Keal Harry, but I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. I think he's one of those guys that's kind of flying under the radar that teams are really intrigued by.
We've been getting a look at these tight ends down there as well, Lewis. Some big bodies down there. I don't know that we have a player who's going to go in the first round from the tight end class this year. But we got some big physical dudes down there that, as you see right there, Kenny Yeboah making an athletic play going to the ground right there. Yeah, it's impressive body types.
Yeah, they're nice body types. And look, there's a role for those players in the NFL. But I'll tell you this, when you're down here, it is about quickness, gaining leverage in position, and being able to do it, you know, on a consistent basis with suddenness. And you don't see that out of that position down here, you know, so far with this group right here. Obviously with the American team, it's a little bit better. But when you're talking about the wideouts out here, look, between Darby and Collins, these guys are head and shoulders above the rest of the group from an athletic standpoint. And you see it there, just how smooth and how smart he is as far as getting off the line of scrimmage, creating separation in the back part of the end zone, tracking the football.
Really is such an art here in the red zone where the space is reduced.
Yeah, I mean, it emphasizes technique, Field. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's about technique and getting your work done early in and down at the line of scrimmage. If you lose there, you're probably going to lose the down like that.
Let's take a listen in to Gerald Alexander, the defensive backs coach for the Miami Dolphins, down there at that one-on-one period.
Thomas, don't get greedy. Don't get greedy. One's enough. Let's go. Now move your feet. Good. Yeah, good competition, good rep.
That's the thing with Nico. I mean, he was completely covered, but he's a power forward. Like, there's no way to stop that on a quick slant.
Use your lane, Keith.
He just uses his body, shields the defender, and it doesn't matter what you do.
Get there, go! Hey, good. Hey, it's not over, Keith. Hey, good. Let's get a. Hey, listen. Get a good punch through the pocket, man. You can finish that rep. Let's get a strong finish at the pocket. Get there. Put hands. Oh.
It's Cade Johnson you see right there. Father played at Nebraska. Cade was a walk-on, South Dakota State. Not sure there's a lot of flash to his game, but he's made a lot of catches this week, I tell you that much.
Yeah, and Trey Brown he's one of the fastest players here. And he got better at locating the ball when it's in the air, but that's always been his problem. What you saw right there is the difference between first round and 4th or 5th round, because he's a 4.33 guy. Like, he's that fast. He can cover anyone, but when the ball's in the air, he gets confused and he looks late, and it's really hurt his career.
We're going to head over to the team period right now. It's a little more competitive action with all 22 involved here as the national team continues its work in advance of Saturday's game, the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl. See some teamwork, and this is a good opportunity to evaluate not just all the players in the field, but some special situation football, field awareness, instincts, communication. A lot here on the plate of these players. Looks like 1st and 10s where they're going to start there from the 25-yard line. Sam Ehlinger, one of Mike Tannenbaum's guys who has shown well so far this week, under center for the national squad. Big week this week here, Mike, for Sam Ehlinger. Just a guy that, probably not ready to be a starter right away in the NFL, but could potentially develop into one down the line.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity for him. He's out here with Ramondre Stevenson from Oklahoma, and it's a depleted group of receivers. We got Nico Collins, Demetro Felton. So this is a good group. And again, he's going to be going head-to-head with Ian Book all week. trying to battle for, on that second day, second, third round quarterbacks, and they're going to be neck and neck. So good opportunity here for Sam.
Earlier on in the broadcast, Todd, you mentioned Sam being sort of Tim Tebow-like without all the attention being drawn to him. Do you mean that from an athletic standpoint? How does the comparison stack up?
I mean it because he's physical, he's tough, he's just like Tim in terms of his dedication and love for the game. He will run the ball. He will be the inside runner on the veer option. Like, he will do anything to get his team to win. What he doesn't have is anticipation and consistency with his accuracy. But what he comes into the league with is not the circus that Tim Tebow came in with. And a lot of teams were afraid of bringing Tim Tebow in because of all the attention and everything that came with him. That's not the same with Ehlinger. So I think he's going to be a good backup for a while, and he's got a shot to wind up starting one day. And I love the way he competes and how tough he is.
Todd, we had talked earlier about how the comparison to Jalen Hurts, because he has really good athleticism, can make a lot of plays with his feet. But right there, we just saw a little deficiency in the game. He throwing the ball outside the numbers about 30 yards down the field into a pretty good win, and he underthrew Nico Collins, and that's a throw he's going to have to make if he wants to be a star in the NFL.
Lewis, I'm going to have to go back to you on some safety knowledge one more time as I see my guy Divine Diablo from Virginia Tech. And I hate to do this, but the last time I saw a safety from Virginia Tech that was as rocked up and big as this dude, Cam Chancellor, who worked out pretty well for his NFL career.
Yeah, it'll be important for a guy like him to be put in good positions, meaning you don't want him being parked on the half, asking to drop 18, 20 yards, have two receivers flying up the hash on him and asking him to just range out of the middle of the field where you could expose him in terms of hip tightness and ability to close quickly on the football. He's a guy who needs to be coming downhill, playing cover 4, playing cover 3, playing cover 6. A guy who's an intermediate to front line type of player, meaning any intermediate zones or being up on the line of scrimmage, blitzing, using his physicality. It's just smart. I mean, it's just smart football. Put a guy in positions to do what he does best. In these kind of periods right here, he needs to show up in terms of his physicality. You've seen a little bit of it show up with some of the players here. I believe Browning about 3 plays ago just absolutely smashed the puller coming out on a G type of scheme. And those are the kind of things that guys like Diablo need to show. When you're big like that, you need to really show that, look, not only am I big physically, but I play big once we put the pads on and we actually start getting into 11 on 11. So that's something to watch with him.
Lewis, talking about playing big, here's Michael Carter, 5, almost 9, and running between the tackles there. That's really not going to be his game at the next level, but he's a tough player, and even though he's short, he has really well-built lower body. And in the last drill, when it was one-on-ones against the linebackers, he really caught the ball well.
Yeah, he's got that instant acceleration. So when you're out here running, on third down, where third and long could be a draw type of situation. Well, third and medium could be a surprise, some kind of slide draw, lead draw. Well, it's not going to be lead draw out of one back, but if something pops open for you in between the A and B gaps, a guy like him can exploit it quickly because of how fast he can get vertical. And you can just see out here, whether it's between the tackles or in space, he's got a different kind of gear. He's got the kind of juice that makes defensive backs go, oh boy. We got to play real good fundamental football with him because he'll rip you for a plus 20, plus 30-yard gain in a hurry.
We all love Mack Brown, right? We all worked with him, and we know that he can sell a player, but he is in love with Michael Carter, and not just the football player, the human being. Military family, discipline, shows up early, stays late, does all the little things, will protect, knows the coverages, knows how to get open, and the instincts and feel as a runner. That's why I think he's one of the top 5 running backs in this class, and I'll be shocked if we get to day 3 and if he's still on the board.
And Todd, that's one of the things you look for all week is how he's been in the drills, even when it's not his rep, paying attention, first in line, and he's been a pro all week. Like I said, watching him in space catching the ball, he's catching the ball like a receiver. And again, there's a difference between being short and small, and he is not small. He has an NFL lower body to him.
This will be a run. Ian Book's got a choice here at the line of scrimmage. You'll see him make an audible right here.
See, that's a real nice cut right there by Khalil.
That's been a theme all week, right?
And you see the jump cut there. He started front side, jump cut backside to his left,
He felt
and then just took off. I mean, those are the kind of things when you're down here on the field, you can really feel the different types of gears these guys have that you can't really get on TV or if you're even in the stands. And what it does is, I tell you what, it makes me start getting a little nervous about my playing days where I used to think, oh, God, when things used to open up like that, it'd be like, oh, boy. Somebody get him before he gets started.
But to sense the zone blocking and where that crease was, that's what makes him a really good back.
This will be an outside zone to the right for Stevenson. Check that left.
Yeah, that play was busted from the beginning. You had a false start. The defensive line was offsides. That's just a wasted rep, unfortunately.
Something for Stevenson that I know a lot of teams want to see is what can he do on 3rd and 4th down? You know, can he catch the ball naturally? And then, you know, what can he do in the kicking game? Because if you're a backup running back in the NFL, the only way you're going to dress is if you could do stuff in the kicking game. We saw that with Mark Ingram coming down the stretch for the Ravens, where he wasn't starting it and
he
got
had
deactivated.
18 catches in 6 games played this past year. So he started to really improve in that area.
It's going to be a limited playbook when you have just 4 days to install one in advance of a game. But that's probably the first screen pass I think we've seen throw during team drills so far.
Carter's so slippery, man. I mean, that you got to see that right there. Just feeling the blocks, where it's setting up, and then like in and out. He just has a great sense for setting up blocks.
You know, and the other thing, Field, to your point about the screen passes, if they're going to be down a handful of receivers for the game, they're going to have to get creative, and getting Michael Carter the ball in the screen game is certainly a good way to get creative.
I know we're not tackling here, but that's a good example of the Ian Book athleticism that I think NFL teams are going to.
That's what he does best.
Gravitate toward. That's right. He's a playmaker, Todd.
He feels the pressure. He knows where it's coming from, and he knows how to get out of it. Whether it's extending the play to throw or just taking off and running, or on design runs. I mean, he can do it all in that area. He's got to get better at letting it rip inside the pocket, throwing the football. But from a running and extending standpoint, he's as good as it gets in this quarterback class.
All right, so we've finished up with that team period. Now heading over to special teams as practice here on Thursday morning in Mobile, Alabama continues to roll along for the national squad. Our coverage continues here on ESPNU after this.
Jim Nagy is in charge. He's the boss this week. And for a guy who hasn't gotten much sleep in the last week, you look pretty darn good. How are you pulling this off?
You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We know what the week's about. You kind of got to get your energy saved up. We'll all crash at the end of the week, of course. Sunday will come and the players will get out of town, and us as a staff will collectively collapse.
How have you done this in terms of the protocols? I know the NFL has a standard. Different college leagues had different standards. How have you pulled this off?
We pulled a little bit from everywhere. You know, constant communication with the NFL and the teams and the college level as well. And this was a great resource having South Alabama right here in our backyard and using, you know, just connecting with all different levels of their athletic department and how they're handling things. So it really was pulling everything together. And that was part of it. It was we have to do this safely, right? We're not just going to have the event if we can't pull it off safely. So when we got to that point in kind of the middle of the fall, then it was full speed ahead.
The quality and depth of these rosters in my recent history here, let's say 4 or 5 years, is better. I mean, this is a lot of quality and a lot of depth. How were you able to manufacture that?
Well, we just scout them up. You know, we watch tape just like the teams do. We've got scouts around the country watching tape. You know, we have relationships in the NFL. I mean, my 20 years in the league, that helps a lot. You know, you can get people on the phone, and part of our process is including them. We go over our boards with them. Those calls take a long time. They're like 90-minute phone calls. We just go down the position player by player about here's who we want to invite. We got 2 spots open. Who do you guys want to see in those 2 spots? So it's a group effort. You know, we take pride in the work we do, but also we don't have the ego to think we have all the answers. We love leaning on these guys as well.
What type of response has the NFL given you this week so far?
It's been overwhelming. It feels great. Just that, you know, they're grateful that they're here and they're seeing football players and seeing them move around. But it's great for me because our staff has worked so hard to pull this thing together. We don't have a big operation, so to see this thing kind of come to life, whether it's here at the stadium or it's at the interviews or at the weigh-ins, like all the different events that we had to pull together in a COVID format, it's been great. And some of the changes we've made, the NFL wants us to keep them. So that's been really rewarding this week.
Well, thank you as well from our staff, Jim. We appreciate the ability to be out here, to hear the whistle, to hear the pads popping, and to actually be around football. So thank you.
No, thank you, Quint.
Field?
Yeah, well said, Quint. We all echo your feelings and our gratitude towards Jim and his entire staff here. They have done an outstanding job to make this week happen. And a reminder that you can catch the Senior Bowl Saturday afternoon at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific on the NFL Network. Looking forward to that game here on Saturday afternoon. All the hard work of these players paying off with the game on Saturday. Our coverage of the Reese Senior Bowl continues. Beal, which is where we are right now. And we're back to team period, some competitive work. Felipe Franks under center to start for the national team here, getting a look at yet more situational football.
You know, all practice long we've been talking about how the periods build off of each other, and the players have to realize that and make sure that they're taking everything that they're being taught in individual and then in some group install, and then the team, and they have to all utilize it. Well, the very first play, what did the offense come out and do? They ran a boot pass and threw the ball to the fullback out in the flat. It was something that the offense was working on down here in the red zone at the beginning of practice. Gerald Alexander was drilling the guys on it down there for the defensive backs, and what happens? The offense executes, the defense doesn't. Those are the kind of things that you start taking into account when you're evaluating players, because it's all about retaining what you've been taught and utilizing it. So you want to see players start making plays based off of what you've coached them up to do. Offense looks pretty good so far, although we've only had a couple reps here, just 2 plays so far. So that's something to watch, because that's what scouts are watching for. That's what coaches are watching for in this 11-on-11 period.
Yeah, and Lewis, yesterday during the American team practice, Matt Rule, the Panthers head coach, had about a 1-minute huddle with his team. He paused practice. Everybody bring it in. And he talked about not just listening to coaches, but wanting to be coached and wanting to take the information they're presenting them and applying it and getting better. I could see the look in your eyes when he was talking to those players and addressing them, and sort of the essence of what coaching is during this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're having some of the very best players in the country here, right? So they've all had some success. They've all been singled out for being, standout performers, and the majority of them have gotten very good coaching. But what Matt Rule was saying is, you have to still continue to want to get better and be willing to take coaching from someone who you don't know. Look, this is his first time that he's introduced himself to these guys, so he has no equity built up with them. But he wants them to be open-minded competitors that want to be coached, and those are the kind of players that he's looking for. And he quickly said, hey, look, you're not going to impress me by saying yes, sir, no, sir, because I can read your body language when you're sitting there really just trying to tune me out.
I don't want yes men. And that was the message. I don't want yes men.
Well, I mean, what he was really, to me, Todd, what he was really trying to say is this: don't BS me.
Yeah.
Don't try and blow me off by a yes, sir, and think I'm just going to back off of you. Look me in the face, because I'm actually trying to help you.
Ball.
Right, I'm trying to help you.
And
which was,
like I said yesterday,
it was a great message.
95% of the players on his roster are not going to be on his team.
Yeah.
But he's still, because he's a coach and he's a teacher, he wants to make them better. Yeah. And you could see, like, he has just a starvation for making players better, and he knows how to do it at every position. And he doesn't want yes, sir. Yes,
guys,
sir. He wants guys that are literally look me in the eye and take in what I'm telling you.
So one thing to add to that, guys, is sitting in draft meetings with Coach Belichick, always talked about two things that a pro player has more of than a college player: more time and more money. And that's why you want the high character guys that can take to the coaching, want to get better, invest in themselves, invest in the process. And one of the things that both the Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins had this week, they have the ability to see these people, these players, a lot better than the other 30 teams. So it's a great advantage for them. But that always stayed with me all through my career, that when you're drafting somebody, more time, more money, how will the player handle those two things?
Yeah, Marty Schottenheimer told me 15, 17 years ago, more time, more money, and more fame than anyone has ever had in their life. How do they handle it? And you got to figure out the guys that can actually handle it.
Let's head back down on the field and listen to the Dolphins linebackers coach, Anthony Campanile, who's mic'd up.
Good, good.
You're in right now.
All right, nickel. Two nickel. Hey, listen up. Hey, Baron, you're up at Mike next. Where's Tony? You're going at Will. All right, Daniel, you're up at Sam. You're up at Sam. Rhino.
For every play, you can hear the defense calling out the personnel, the down to distance. 1st and 10, 21, meaning of course 2
Keep an eye on Michigan versus Michigan. 4 versus 1.
I'm going to take Nico Collins.
Or running up the middle.
Behind the Michigan fullback, right?
That's why,
there you go.
Because I knew Nico Collins is such a good blocker. That's why. Speaking of which, we had Braylon Edwards for a while at the Jets, and he was a big physical Michigan receiver. And I don't know if Nico Collins is that thick, but one of the things that Braylon Edwards brought was a big presence to the running game. And it's another way that Nico Collins can separate himself, because he is so big and so physical. Again, had 7 touchdowns the year before, and big week for him not playing this past season.
This will be a good look at quarterback play. It'll be a play action here for Sam.
20.
I'll tell you what, guys, I think that was a great rep. You got to get rid of the ball faster. Either check it down, get rid of it, but in an NFL game, that's probably a sack.
Lewis, for some of these quarterbacks that maybe aren't going to become starters right away, or maybe ever, so, in the NFL there's a spot for backup quarterbacks. How much do you think this week can help out some of these guys here off the field too? Because they're getting all that time to speak to these clubs that they're not going to have otherwise during the pre-draft process, with the combine going virtual and, of course, so many other limitations due to COVID.
Yeah, look, the backup quarterbacks, they have a different mindset. They're wired different than starters. Backup quarterbacks have to be self-starters. They have to be self-sufficient. They have to be internally motivated, intrinsically motivated to continue to always want to prepare as if they're going to be the starter without getting that kind of attention. And those are the kind of things you're going to try and find out at a place like this, as far as your ability to talk to these guys and really see what their motivation is for playing the game. Right? I mean, that's one of the biggest things you always want to answer about young prospects is, what's your motivation? What are you really doing this for? Are you doing it for the fame and the attention and the money, or are you doing it because you actually love it? And I hate that phrase, do you love football or not? But it is true. And with backup quarterbacks, they have to love the tedious grind without any of the shine, without any of the adulation, because many times during the course of a week, they don't even get talked to. Okay, because you just put so much time in the starting quarterback. So there's no doubt that coming down here and having coaches really get to be able to interview you and figure you out a little bit one-on-one is going to go a long way towards helping your prospects of landing a spot in the quarterback room somewhere in the NFL, simply by how you handle this week in the interview process. No question about it.
One of the best conversations I ever had was with Jason Garrett. And he was saying, you know, he's a Princeton guy. He's very smart, obviously. And he's like, let's just boil it down. You need two things as a coach. You need a guy who needs football, and then you need a guy who is willing to be coachable. And like we can talk about all the other measurables, this, that, and the other thing, but we need someone who needs football and is coachable and wants to be coached and wants to get better. And that's what coaches look for.
You know, the value of a backup quarterback has been highlighted on several occasions during the NFL playoffs. We saw a guy like John Wolford start briefly for the Seahawks, for the Rams against the Seahawks. And then how about just 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs, who have the most talented quarterback on the planet as their starter in Patrick Mahomes, leaves the game early because of a concussion. And who steps up? Chad Henne, not a guy who entered the league believing he'd be a backup. As a matter of fact, he started games early on in his career. But on a fourth down, gotta-have-it moment, he was ready. And that was a gutsy call by Andy Reid, of course, and Eric Bieniemy. But Chad Henne, a guy that has been preparing like a starter despite being a backup, and it showed up in that critical moment.
I love that throw by Ian Book.
Great.
Inside the pocket. You know, Brian Kelly has told me a dozen times, let it rip. Like, just get the ball out. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't rely on your legs. Get the ball out. He saw what the coverage was, and he got the ball out with pressure in his face. And those are the things that you really like to see in terms of a quarterback understanding what the coverage is, what the play call is, and improving throughout the week.
This one's the back or the tight end to Ian's left.
Tell you what, those back-to-back throws, really good ball placement by Book. Very accurate.
Decisive, too. And that's the thing. He said it. Brian Kelly said it. Tommy Reese has texted me and said it again this week. They just want him to let it rip and be decisive, and you're starting to see more of it.
RPO here. Keep your eyes on Darby, lower portion of the screen.
Well, that's 3 in a row for Ian Book. Darby runs that quick slant. Book pulls it, throws a really good pass.
And Darby's got an energy about him, huh, guys? He's a player that you can see the emotion that he plays with, and it's showed up quite a bit this week.
And, you know, Phil, we touched on it at the top of the show, which is the national team's down about 4 receivers right now, so Frank Darby's getting a lot more reps than he did the first couple of days, and right now he's taking advantage of it.
Good red zone work here. One of the players we've been keeping an eye on is Nico Collins, the talented Michigan wide receiver who's lining up, split out wide on the offense's left side. This, Lewis, is where this guy can really win at the NFL level.
Stop routes on the outside.
There's a reason the safety's over the top.
Sam Ehlinger just getting rid of that one, and as we know in the red zone, one of the great traits a quarterback can possess is being able to live to see another down. No negative plays in the red zone.
Ian was so impressive. 3 straight throws. Decisive, getting the ball out, knowing exactly where to go with the ball. He is, I don't know, to me, has improved more than most quarterbacks in the country from week 1 to now.
This will be Carter.
This has been such a unique year for football players overall because they've been playing in empty stadiums all year long. So what you wind up finding out is exactly how much these guys really like well, not just like, but how much they really love football. Because look, football is a very emotional game, and what you're finding out in these practices right now, look, they've been practicing 3 days. Okay, some of these guys are, they're getting sore, they're getting tired, they're taking a lot of reps. Coaches quickly can figure out who are the ones who have that staying power, who have that resilience, that resolve, who really just say, look, there's nothing else that I want to do. I just want to play football. And there's a couple guys who are playing at different speeds out here. And if you watch closely, there's some guys who are already sitting there maybe going, what period of practice are we in? Well, how soon do we get on the bus? It starts to show up right now. And especially watch it with the offensive and defensive lines right now. Who's going through the motions and who isn't? Who's getting knocked off the ball and who isn't? These are kind of the tough practices that really you can start separating yourself and really start making a name for yourself. This is the part of football that I really love, because you're going to find out how much you love it.
Lewis, I love the fine line you're describing. I remember the late, great Junior Seau, who spent, of course, a year with the Patriots. I remember one of the first messages he shared when he got there. He asked everybody in the locker room, who wants to win? You'd imagine everybody raised their hand. Everybody wants to win. He said, but who needs to win? Which one of you guys needs to win? And the guys that needed to win, those are the ones that played such a critical role in the Patriots' 16-0 regular season that year. I thought it was such a great way of capturing the essence of those that really will be built to last in the NFL. We're seeing some of those players here this week.
Here's the third quarterback, Felipe Franks, and this is obviously a really big week for him. Started off with Florida, transferred to Arkansas, had a good year there, been very inconsistent in his career. Has all the measurables. Now he needs to put it together, and he's, in my mind, clearly behind these other two guys, Ian Book and Sam Ehlinger.
It's a nice throw there. There's a big tight end from
John
Boise
Bates
State.
from Boise.
John Bates.
Nice
He's
week
6'6", 255. He's a big target. 34 catches, 19 games, past 2 years. He's not a speed guy, but he's got a great catch radius, and he's a guy that you love to target in the red zone. It's got to be Nico's time, right? Nico Collins.
So they don't make too many defensive backs that can hang with a 6'4" Nico Collins in the red area. Love to see him get a look. I think with Felipe Franks, he reminds me of one of those quarterbacks that I don't think all 32 NFL teams will love him. And there may be people, wherever he ends up, there might just be one quarterback's coach who sees enough in him to believe in it. He's going to find a spot somewhere in the NFL. But he'll be a really interesting developmental prospect. Can some of the natural ability be harnessed? There's plenty there, but the inconsistency has sort of defined moments of his college career.
You don't feel like when you're sitting there in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round of the draft, you want to draft somebody regardless of the position that has an attribute you could develop off of. And when you look at Felipe Franks, it's size. He has a good work ethic, so that means he has a high ceiling, even though there's been a lot of inconsistencies. Maybe he's on the practice squad for a year or two, but you invest an off-season into him, see if he can get better, see if he can get a little bit quicker, a little bit stronger from an arm strength perspective. But at least you know, like when you draft this guy, he's starting the SEC, he's prototypical size, so at least you're starting working from a good foundation.
Well, from a developmental quarterback to a franchise quarterback, this season is going to be the future of Deshaun Watson, who this morning, according to Adam Schefter, requested a trade from the Houston Texans. Of course, Deshaun Watson's talent speaks for itself, a guy who was a legitimate franchise quarterback at the age of 25. And Lewis, 1 year ago, the Miami Dolphins used the 5th overall pick, one of their 3 first-round picks, on Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama. But here they are, owners of the 3rd overall pick, plus the 17th overall pick. And some are wondering whether the Dolphins might be well-suited to make an offer for Deshaun Watson. If you were part of the Miami Dolphins front office or this coaching staff who's just feet away from us right now, what would be your thought process behind potentially trying to land Deshaun Watson in a trade?
Yeah, Field, I mean, obviously, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I would say this, though, for Miami, okay? You cannot rush the judgment off of a limited resume for Tua Tagovailoa in his rookie season. You cannot rush the judgment and automatically now feel as though you have a good feel for exactly what he is going to be in the future when you have all the requisite pieces around him to really see him reach his full potential. Yeah, I think you're playing a dangerous game rushing the judgment on a guy like that who last year coming out in the draft, all things being equal, he was the best pure passer of the football in the draft. He just was. In his year, he was the best pure passer of the football in this draft. I think with all the draft capital that they have right now, they would be better suited to going ahead and continuing to build out the weaponry that they have on the perimeter for this young man, continuing to develop the interior pass blocking and run blocking that they desperately need to make sure that they don't put too much pressure on him as far as throwing the football, and they're able to have some sort of semblance of balance and continue to just build out this football team, because they are positioned right now to be able to really stock this roster for the long haul and to be able to get some, short-term pop out of it as well and compete immediately, as they showed you they could do already this year. In order to get Deshaun Watson on your football team, I'll tell you what. Now, he is a franchise player. There's no question about it. You could make an argument that if you give him, equal weapons to some of the very best quarterbacks in the NFL, a la Patrick Mahomes, that he may put up the exact same numbers, if not even better, than guys as great as Patrick. So I have all the respect in the world for Deshaun. But I think for Miami and where they are in their program build, I would stay the course with Tua, continue to get him the weapons that he needs, continue to coach him and develop him, and let it roll, because I think they're on the fast track right now to success. They've got their quarterback in their head coach in Brian Flores. He knows exactly what he wants, exactly what he's doing. He pushes all the right buttons. I would stay the course with it. I would not start flirting with that idea right now, considering what you did to get to it last year.
I think from a process standpoint, if I'm Miami, you have to. I agree with Lewis. You have to be patient. He's coming off of major hip surgery 14 months ago. And all the rookie quarterbacks, even as good as Justin Herbert played, you have to be patient in evaluating them from a standpoint, no off-season program, no OTAs, no preseason games. But with that said, I think from a process standpoint, you absolutely have to look at it. Both the Jets at 2 with Sam Darnold and Miami at 3 with Tua, from a standpoint of, is Zach Wilson better than Tua? Is Justin Fields better than Tua? Now, as it relates to Deshaun Watson, I think what you have to say is, how reasonable is the price? If we get Deshaun Watson, as good as our defense has played, that certainly gives us a very good chance to win immediately. So I think you have to thoroughly exhaust it, see what the cost would be, factor in what his contract is, what other players would you lose in terms of, now that you're going from a rookie contract to Deshaun's contract. So there's a lot to look at, but I do think you have to look at it, because while Tua still has a good future, and again, everything we talked about in terms of what he came off of, it's an unexpected opportunity, and that's what great teams, great organizations do. They take advantage of unexpected opportunities. So I would think all those teams in the top 5 will thoroughly look at it and then make the best decision for their organization.
Yeah, Tua wasn't perfect. We all saw it, but he was 6-3 as a starter. And you've got an organization finally with good people running it. With Brian Flores as the head coach, with Chris Greer as the GM, they have the right people in place to develop players and to bring in the right players. And I think you stick with Tua and you continue to develop around him and bring more weapons and get better on the defensive side. I wouldn't mess with it. I think Tua is going to be a great NFL starting quarterback. It's just going to take a year or two.
The Deshaun Watson saga could define the NFL's offseason. Our week is defined by Senior Bowl coverage. We're not going anywhere as the national team's practice continues here on ESPNU. Back at the 2021 Reese's Senior Bowl Thursday practice for the national team coached by the Miami Dolphins. And let's get you right on the field. You see some teamwork near the goal line. 4-yard line. Here's Ian Book, Notre Dame quarterback, who had a good, sharp team practice during the last period. Good decision right there, making something out of nothing off the low snap. A guy whose athleticism has certainly showed up on a couple of different occasions. See some energy there from the national team offense after that touchdown.
That's what he brings. He's not the fastest guy, but he has great instincts as a runner, when to take it and pull it down and just go. And he sets up blocks. He's got good quickness. He's tough, obviously. And he reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield in terms of the energy that he brings to an offense.
This will be an RPO for Ian. They're playing this as a 4th down.
Yes, sir!
Nice throw. Guys, that was a great throw. Upstanding down here in that corner. And he threw a perfect pass to Yeboah, the tight end from Ole Miss, where either he was going to catch it or it would have been incomplete. But that was a perfect throw.
And that's what Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees, his offensive coordinator, wanted to see all year long. Hey, it's going to be tight windows. The competition's getting better. Just get the ball out and give your receiver a chance. And that's what he did.
Kenny Yeboah is an interesting guy there. You saw him, the Ole Miss tight end, who had just a massive game against Alabama this past season, but otherwise was pretty quiet. Toolsy, I mean, 6'5".
7 catches for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sean McDonough called his name about 50 times that night, it felt like. But he had just 20 catches in 7 other games. So the inconsistency is what concerns you as an evaluator, and he's had some drop passes here this week.
You know, when you look like that as a tight end, you know that offensive coordinators are going to see it and think they can make this player big-time red zone threat, but you got to be able to use that athletic ability to generate separation like we saw on that last touchdown catch.
Yeah, I think they'll put Felton here at the running back position. You'll see him with the UCLA helmet. It should be a swing pass to him. Now he's going to show a little versatility. He's lined up at running back and receiver this year.
You mentioned that versatility, Quinn, of Felton, who last period during punt returns having some troubles handling punts, but a guy who, if he's going to be a big part of your offense, it's not going to just be at one position. He's going to be able to play both at running back, wide receiver, and maybe handle some punt return duties if he can solidify the catching part. Would love to see one of these plays here designed for Nico Collins to just use that space in one of the back corners of the end zone.
I wish Ellinger came to the other side of the field because he had Michael Carter open for a touchdown, but I guess the reads just took him to the other side.
Yeah, Sam struggled a little bit with his accuracy down here. Quick processing, putting the ball in good, accurate places. It's going to be a work in progress for him. Yeah, that's not a surprise.
He missed Felton 2 plays ago.
It's not a shock. It's not a surprise. But, I mean, it's showing up. It just is what it is as far as where he's at in his development right now.
Tell you what, I could watch 33 all day long. Your Pitt guy, Lou Hamlin.
Yeah. He's just a good football player.
He's not going to run fast. He doesn't have the measurables, but he just loves the game. He is so smart. Narduzzi said he's the smartest player that we've coached in a long time. He can play near the line. He can play that overhang. He can play deep safety. He can cover. He supports the run. He does everything you look for. He's going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick, and some team's going to get a steal with him.
It's Damar Hamlin, one of 3 Pitt defensive players here this week. A pair of defensive linemen included Rashad Weaver, player that some believe could be maybe a day 2 pick.
Felipe Franks now in the quarterback. This will be a roll to the near side to his right. Looking for the back and the flat.
You're just guessing all this stuff?
No, I know their terminology by now. They have some calls, though, Todd, that are ridiculous. I really feel for these quarterbacks.
Well, these are the things they were working on early on in individual periods. So it's going to be play action pass. I guess we were talking about hitting Ramondre Stevenson out in the flat.
That's right.
That's exactly what they worked on.
It's too bad he had Yeboah in the back of the end zone early. Again, couldn't emphasize enough. A lot of mixed opinions around the league on Felipe Franks, and
he gets locked on his primary a lot, and has trouble getting off of read 1 to read 2 and seeing the whole field.
Let's take a listen down on the field. Lemuel Jean-Pierre, the Dolphins offensive line coach, mic'd for All Access.
60 protections. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
My first start. I think there was gold, like from here back with all this, up to
Hey, 33 week. 33 week.
3 weeks.
Yes, sir.
It's literally gold.
It's being RPO, being told up top, which is the far side of the field. Could be Nico or the slot, Felton.
I was wondering if Spencer was going to get a 3-point or 2-point.
Near side.
I was wondering if Spencer was going to get a 3-point or 2-point. Spencer. I was looking at him.
Mike got an up-close and personal look there, that little one-on-one interaction.
that was great breakup by St. Jude's corner, one-on-one in the back here of the end zone. It was a decent.
You got to put more air on that football, make it more 50-50 jump ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a laser. He didn't have any shot. Gave the wide receiver no shot.
Got the entire North national team congregating right now. Looks like we're getting ready to wrap up practice here momentarily. See, Brian Flores, just such an immensely impressive individual. Brian Flores, you know, we'll see where the NFL ends up with its Coach of the Year this year, but Brian Flores will certainly be in the mix. Did just an excellent job of guiding this team to a near playoff berth.
It's the best this organization has been in terms of leadership, and as long as I've been involved in football, you know, and obviously Shula was there before, but since then they have not had the structure that they have now with Flores and Chris Greer as the GM. I mean, they have the right people in place to lead.
You know, Brian Flores did a couple of things this year that I think some of the public would have disagreed with, specifically benching Ryan Fitzpatrick in favor of Tua Tagovailoa. And we all understand that it's not perfect yet for Tua, but one thing you can tell about Brian Flores is that man knows how to take the pulse of a locker room and knows how players are going to respond. And I thought that the response from so many players this year really showed that from Brian Flores. The trajectory for this franchise is certainly heading nowhere but up, especially when you factor in how good they were this past year and the assets they have available. As we discussed earlier, the Dolphins are owners of 4 of the top 50 picks. And they are draft rich with the 3rd and 17th overall picks in this year's 2021 NFL draft. Whether they go with a quarterback, whether they go with a wide receiver, no matter who they take at pick 3, the Dolphins are prepared to add an impact player at the very top of the draft. You see the national team breaking things down here, including their practice. And as always, one of our favorite parts of practice is listening in to the coaches. Let's take a listen to some of the best of our Wired for Sound.
Hey, tackles. All I need is a pop. I don't need that. Just give me the pop. Step into him. No, you're good, Dylan. Sit. Good. All right.
Fellas, big plays run through the secondary. If it gets past the front line, we got to put the ball on the ground. Does that make sense? We got to use each other. Split safety defense. Okay, no different than what we just did. We just got more space. Here we go. See if y'all can handle this. Here we go, say it. Go. Oh! Can we get that? Here we go, 2 more time.
You guys get in there and any of them leads. You got to, not like the stuff we were watching on tape last night, right? The one we were watching last night, that's just got to look like. All the leads got to look like that, all right? Like anything that don't look like that ain't good enough. That's a minus, right?
Just get to an undercut position. So right now, undercut him, right there. That's the relationship you want. Make him throw a perfect ball. Make sense?
Boom. There you go. Because even if I try to beat you, right, in the game, you can be a guard there. Don't reach for it. If I go out here, I'll never get a quarterback. If it's, I'm going to get down on you anyway. All right?
We want to try and get hands as long as we can with the Sam. Sam, you really get hands on the Y. You'd be ping-ponging those two guys. You know what I'm saying? You'd be pushing out, but he's got to restart and reroute it back to you.
Back here at the Reese's Senior Bowl in Quick Test Stations right now, joined by Dolphins head coach Brian Flores.
Coach, Thursday in the books. What'd you accomplish today?
Well, it's been a good week. I think we've got a good evaluation of a lot of good players. We've seen them improve really on every day. You know, from the first practice to the second practice to the third practice, we've seen a lot of improvement, which is what we talk to them about, their goals for this week, and improving is something that we want to see as coaches, as personnel people, and we saw that this week for sure.
Our analyst had positive things to say about quarterback Ian Book. How would you describe what you've seen from Ian?
I think he's smart. I think he loves the game. He's tough. He's got leadership qualities, and you saw that. How he has command of the huddle, command of the offensive line at the line of scrimmage. He worked hard. It's important to him. So he did well for himself this week.
The running back position is a position of strength, I think, with Carter, Stevenson, Herbert. How would you describe their performances and their potential?
I think all three of those guys had good weeks. They're all a little bit different, but they all have good skill sets. Stevenson's, big back with good vision. Carter got real good quickness, balance. Herbert's the same. And I would say all three of them, have good hands and catch the ball out of the backfield.
Lastly, our guys like Damar Hamlin, the DB out of Pitt.
Yeah.
What do you notice about his game?
He's smart. He's tough. The safety position, it's about communication, and you're really the quarterback of the defense. So he showed a lot of that. He can take in a lot of information and take it from the board to the field. So we're impressed with him. Thursday
is about improvement. It's about, you find out who loves the game, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got a lot of guys here who love to play football. I think Jim Nagy and the Senior Bowl staff, they brought in some really talented players. But not only that, guys who are, they enjoy the game. They're passionate about the game. And it's not about all the other, fluff, as I call it. They really just enjoy it. And if no one was watching, they'd be playing.
Well, thank you, Coach. We appreciate the time with you. And your coaches wearing the mics made our shows awesome. And they were great, Coach. Your guys did a wonderful job.
We got a great staff. These guys did a great job this week. They work hard. And, I'm fortunate to be around a lot of great people.
They really did. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Field.
Thanks, Quentin. Thanks to Brian Flores, the outstanding head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Time now for us to look at some of the players that stood out during practice today. Todd, we'll start with you. We were just talking about him. Ian Book from Notre Dame.
Yeah, Ian Book in the red zone was really impressive. And, Lou brought it up earlier, a lot like Baker Mayfield. When you are getting it done in the red zone and finding a way to make quick decisions, that it tells you a lot about the quarterback. 3 throws in a row, he was dialed in. He knew where to go with the ball. He was decisive. And Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees, his coaches, have always said, just let it rip. And he started to let it rip today. And you can see the leadership and just the confidence that he has. He's been really impressive this week.
And kind words from Brian Flores just a moment ago about Ian Book and his love for the game. Mike Tannenbaum, let's go to you now. How about one of the running backs that you thought really stood out today?
Michael Carter, University of North Carolina. Again, he's undersized, but he showed really a lot of different facets to his game. Here he is running between the tackles. Again, he's short, guys, but he is strong. He broke a lot of tackles. Here we see him out in the flat, catching the ball naturally, getting upfield. And he's going to be somebody at the next level that should have 4-down value. I expect him to be playing on special teams as well. So here he's making a play in space on a screen pass. So thought he had a really good day. Thought last 3 days, Michael Carter certainly helped himself.
Yeah, he's from a military family. And you talk to Mac Brown, his head coach, and he just raves about him. The work ethic, showing up early, last one out of the building, loves the game, and just the discipline that he has. In addition to, obviously, the quickness and the vision and the ability to catch the ball. But he's what you want in your locker room, and he's what you want on your team.
Seen some of these guys getting some work post-practice, and you see someone like Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan wide receiver, has been great all week, but a reminder today, a little bit banged up, so erring on the side of caution, did not work today. Let's talk about a wide receiver that did continue to work today, Lewis, and that's Nico Collins from Michigan. Opted out of the season, but he has been a factor all week.
Yeah, he sure has. Look, today when they got to team periods, he wasn't able to really show what he can really do. That was probably his best catch of the practice when they went one-on-one in the red zone. But look, this is a guy who's just special, all right? It's so hard in the NFL to drive the ball 80 yards down the field and put together 10, 11, 12-play drives. You need guys who can make big plays, plus 20, plus 30, plus 40-yard catches. And Nico Collins is one of those guys, along with a lot of the other wide receivers here, and that's why he's a guy who, despite opting out for this season, he's already shown, look, I'm one of those special type of playmakers. I'm one of those difference makers. And I'm a three-position player. As big as I am, I can move in the slot if I need to. I can play the X or the Z. I can go in motion. I can run routes out of the backfield. He's got unique quickness for a guy who's 6'4", 215, 220 pounds. And he's just a special guy. And then, look, Darby, who you see on your screen right now, or actually you're about to see on your screen right now, he's a guy who actually showed in this practice as well that he has some ability as far as his quickness at the line of scrimmage, his ability to adjust the football down the field, and his ability to produce those explosives that offenses are desperately searching for in the NFL. Because, again, it's just too hard to go on 10, 11, 12-play drives. You need guys who can just break a game open at a moment's notice. And between guys like Collins and Darby and the rest of the wide receivers down here, you're going to have a lot of people to be able to choose from in this upcoming draft. Heck, this wide receiver draft class this year may be as good, if not better, than last year's, which is saying something considering how well the youngsters perform this year on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, you get Jamar Chase from LSU. You got the two Alabama wide receivers, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, who won the Heisman. You got Bateman from Minnesota, who I think is going to be an instant starter and really good player. He's almost like a Michael Thomas. You know, he's going to run a 4.55, and everyone's going to say, does he belong in the first round? He will when you start seeing him in the NFL. And then Kadarius Toney has been really good this week. He's been injured. He had a rib injury, but he's so explosive, and you can utilize him in so many different ways. So those are four guys right there, 4 or 5 guys right there. And we're not even talking about some of the other receivers that have showed up with Nico Collins and Dwayne Eskridge, who I think have been exceptional here this week during practice.
I think if the question is Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase, the answer is yes, but let's split some hairs here, Mike Tannenbaum. I know that Jamar Chase did not play this past year, but if you're one of those teams in the top 5, might have the honor of picking the first wide receiver, who would be your preference?
Well, it's funny. I went to the national championship game, and I'm driving to the stadium with my son. I'm like, boy, I wonder what the Jets are going to do. Are they going to take Justin Fields, or are they going to keep Sam Darnold? And I left the stadium thinking, like, oh, my God, the Dolphins have to draft Devontae Smith. So he was dynamic that night. He's been dynamic his whole career, and you hear about his character. We talked earlier in the week.
His ball.
Yeah, and we talked earlier in the week about the Marvin Harrison comparison. You know, at the Jets and the Dolphins, trying to defend him for a long time. You know what's coming. You still can't stop it. So if you ask me, I'm going with Devontae Smith.
Any disagreement there, Todd or Lewis?
Not at all. Honestly, and Jamar Chase is an unbelievable player. But when Jalen Waddle went down, and the way that Devontae Smith stepped up, it was 170, 220 every single week. He was making it happen. And there's nothing like being on the sideline, on the field, watching these Alabama receivers, the way they chirp at each other, the way they compete. They just love the game. And Devontae's going to bring that to an NFL level.
You know what we need to do?